Good afternoon. My name is Dorothea Shiningayamwe, and I'm going to be your tutor for thinking skills and emotional intelligence development, subject code BED-TSD22, Bachelor in Education Honors Degree, Examination-Based Contact Class, January 2018. Presenter as outlined earlier, Dorothea Etuete Shiningayamwe. You are welcome. In my introduction, in this presentation, I am going to discuss some of the content of your study guide in order to help you prepare for the upcoming exams. Please note that I am not going to give attention to the whole content. However, for any queries, please contact or send me an email to shietuwete@gmail.com, shietuwete@gmail.com. However, before you study, you need to familiarize yourself with the learning outcome found at the beginning of the learning unit. If you go back to your unit, you are going to see that there are some learning unit, or they are called exit learning unit. At the end of the lesson or at the end of the module, students are expected to know certain few things or certain learning outcomes for the module. So it's very important that you familiarize yourself with this learning outcome for the unit, for you to be able to have a bit of a clue on the whole subject or the whole content of the module. You also need to pay attention to the learning activities and practices. If you go back to your module, at the end of the module, there is what they call learning activities and practice. So it's very important that you familiarize yourself with these learning activities, not just to familiarize, but also to practice them. If there's an exercise, please practice them, learn them, kind of give answers to those activities for you to really kind of train yourself or kind of teach yourself about the whole module. This presentation, only study your study guides for your exams and study all units in the module for the exams. What does this mean? This means that in this presentation, this presentation is entirely for your study for your exam. So it's very important that for the purpose of your exam, fine, you are welcome to conduct other sources, maybe for reasoning or for justifications of your reasons, for practical examples. But it's very important that you only study this guide for your exam and study all the units. In my presentation, you are going to see that I'm going to highlight few topics. This is simply because of the time, but it doesn't mean you should neglect or you should not touch units that were not spoken or they were not discussed in this presentation. It's very important that in preparation for exam, you need to study the whole unit, or you need to study all units in this module for your exam. Okay, we are coming back to thinking skills and emotional intelligence development. Welcome to the module of thinking skills and emotional intelligence, a module that will sensitize you on the importance of thinking skills and emotional intelligence for your learners. If you are looking, we are already giving a highlight: thinking skills and emotional intelligence. Thinking skills and emotional intelligence, these are the major subject core, or these are the major module core for the subject. This module is also going to assist you in designing best learning interventions. What are learning interventions? Learning strategies, learning styles. With the thinking skills and emotional intelligence development, there are only two things. This module is going to sensitize you on the importance of thinking skills and emotional intelligence for your learners, and it's also going to assist you in designing the best learning interventions for your learners. What are the learning outcomes? As I've mentioned earlier, that it's very important that you familiarize yourself with these learning outcomes, or should understand them, learn to discuss them, explain them. What is very important? What are you expected to know at the end of this module? Upon the completion of this module, you should be able to discuss the concept of thinking skills and emotional intelligence as key subject issues. What is thinking skills? What is emotional intelligence? You should be able to explain the curriculum issues related to teaching and learning thinking skills. Explain assessment of thinking skills, including the emotional intelligence. In my presentation, when I'll be referring to EI, I'm actually referring to emotional intelligence. So apply ways and activities of teaching and learning EI. Evaluate models and issues on EI, including programs, persons, and theories. These are the 5 learning outcomes you are expected to understand, or you should be able to explain, discuss, apply, and evaluate at the end of the module. Okay, this module covers 10 units. It's quite a very extensive module, which slowly introduce you to this aspect of thinking skills of learners and emotional intelligence. Therefore, it's very important that you need to understand, define, and explain the concept of thinking skills and emotional intelligence as core subject themes. Please pay more attention to this as a core area of a subject. Now, what are thinking skills? How do you understand the concept of thinking skills? Briefly, thinking skills are the thoughts, the reasoning, the intellectual processes that are considered as building blocks of thinking used by individuals to learn from their experience, create meanings, solve problems, ask questions, create ideas, plan, organize, make judgment. It's a detailed cognitive processes that helps individuals to make decisions, innovate, solve problems, organize tasks. In many cases, in our daily life, you find some people are referred as fast thinkers. They are referred as critical thinkers. They are referred, you would even say in a class that I think she's a fast thinker, or she has very good thinking skills analysis. The thinking skills these are the thoughts, the reasoning, the intellectual processes that are considered as building blocks of thinking individuals to learn from their experiences, to create, to solve, to make judgments, to ask questions, to create ideas, to innovate, to make judgments, to make decisions, to solve problems, to, referring to learners, and also it also helps individuals to make decisions, to innovate, to solve issues. People use thinking skills to solve problems, to organize tasks, to plan, to do a lot of other cognitive processes. So briefly, that's what we are referring to as a thinking skill. According to the thinking skills, there is a philosopher of education who demonstrated thinking skills in a very practical and order of thinking, mainly evaluation, ability to assess, judge, criticize, support, compare, and conclude. Remember when I said the thinking skills help people to evaluate. Thinking skills help people to demonstrate. Thinking skills help people to make decisions, to solve problems. So this philosopher has mentioned, or he identified 6 practical and order of thinking skills, which are the evaluation, the synthesis, the analysis, the application, and the comprehension. Now, what does it mean when you are evaluating? Evaluation is the ability to assess, judge, criticize, support, compare, and conclude. When you are evaluating a thinking skill, kind of a thinking or a thought, you are able to assess the weaknesses and the strength. You are able to judge the strong part and the weakest part, the right and the wrong. You are able to make a difference. You are able to criticize. You are able to support, compare, and conclude, because you are kind of making an evaluation. Remember when we say thinking skills are more like a thinking block. So this philosopher has put the thinking skills in a practical and order of thinking, in the order of preferences. And he believes that there's evaluation and there's synthesis. What is synthesis? It means to create, to innovate, to mix, to create new pattern of knowledge, to share the past, to have the present. And apart from synthesis, we have what you call analysis. Analysis is to break down learning materials into parts, recognize, identify what is hidden. If you're saying analyze, when you are analyzing, look at a picture or think in a very analytical way. You are able to break down things into details. You are able to break down learning materials into parts. You are going to recognize, you are able to identify even the hidden parts of what is not what is not seen. And then we have what you call the application of knowledge. If you are the fourth practical and order of thinking skills is application. The application is apply and transfer the knowledge to a different level. When you apply the knowledge, when a learner is taught to apply the knowledge, it's because they are able to apply and they're able to transfer this knowledge to a different level. Now, how do you apply knowledge to a different level? If I'm taught how to kind of, let me say, I'm taught in a class of entrepreneurship, for instance. This is more of the theoretical part of entrepreneurship, but I'm able to transfer and I'm able to apply. And when do I apply this knowledge? I apply this knowledge maybe when I'm practically in the field doing entrepreneurship work. Like maybe I have a small business that is running. I'm able to do my accounting on my own. I'm able to do the marketing, little things. Application of the thinking skills have to do with the application of knowledge, the application and the transfer of knowledge to a different level. Because if I was only taught theoretically for level 1, I should be able to apply and maybe move to level 2 with my application of knowledge. And then we have what you call the comprehension. The comprehension gives detailed information on the issue. Comprehension has to do giving detailed information on the issue. When I'm giving a detailed information on the issue, I was talking about entrepreneurship, for instance. I'm able to really give a detailed information on business or entrepreneurship, for instance. I'm able to say, okay, when did I start the business? How is the business running? What are the weaknesses? What are the strengths? How do I pick myself up which one has the best market for this type of businesses? Who is my target? I'm just not applying the knowledge, but I'm also very fully aware and I'm giving a detailed information on the issue. And then what we have, the knowledge gathering. The knowledge gathering has to do with gathering of knowledge, remembering, memorizing, and recalling. I give a practical example of entrepreneurship. I'm even able to remember the date where the business was not going so well. I should be able to memorize maybe the budget I had, or maybe the profit I had made, 3-4 parts, the market which was so good and what. I'm also able to knowledge gathering. Remember when I spoke about the application, when you apply, you transfer the knowledge to a different level, and you also start knowledge gathering, kind of also making a record, kind of. Other key module terminologies apart from the thinking, remember I spoke about the thinking skills and the emotional intelligence and the thinking skills, order of thinking skills. For you to understand issues related to thinking skills and emotional intelligence, please, you need to pay attention to the following concept as part of other key terminologies. We have what you call the functional thinking, the dysfunctional thinking, and creative thinking, and ethics. What is functional thinking? These are critical thinking learners who are always on the lookout, reasonable, identify hidden problems, think before they act, not biased, make judgment, prior to decision making. Remember when I was talking about the thinking skills? We said the thinking skills, these are the thoughts, the cognitive processes that makes people to think, that makes people to create, that makes people to solve problems, that make people to make judgments. Now, part of other key module terminologies are the functional thinking or the functional thinkers. Who are the functional thinkers learners? These are learners who are always on the lookout. When you're in the class, just reflect very well. When you're in the class, they are learners who are very active. They are always on the lookout. For instance, they always know that I think today Miss is not in a very good mood, or learners are not concentrating, or maybe the way our teacher was making a presentation, it was not really very clear. They're always on the lookout. They are always on the lookout to say what is going to happen today in class. So they are always able to kind of identify hidden problems, even when the teacher is teaching, or the teacher is giving a certain presentation, and learners are not really kind of concentrating, or they do not really understand the topic. The functional thinker learners, they are already knowing. You don't need to tell them that something is wrong here. They are on the lookout. They are reasonable. They identify hidden problems. The problems don't really need to surface as just on to be so out, but they kind of already see what is even hidden. They know that I think Miss is not in a very good term today. Miss is not able to explain this topic very well. I think the interest of the class is not so good. So, and they also say that functional thinkers, they always think before they act. They don't just think. They don't just talk, but they always think before they act. You know, when you think before you act, you are critical. You don't want to act like a fool. You kind of just don't act, but you kind of digest it already in your mind that if I say this, is it right or is it wrong? They are not biased. They always know what is right, and they always know what is wrong. What does it mean when you are not biased? They are neutral. If the teacher is not doing well, functional thinkers, the functional thinking learners, they will already be able to know, Miss, today here, or say, today here you didn't do it very well. And if it's a mistake of the learners, they will freely always also say it out that no, this is not right. And they are not biased, but they are honest. They are neutral. They know, they stand for what is right, and they make judgments prior to decision making. You know, they just don't make judgments, or they just don't make conclusions before decision making, or before analyzing the issue on what is right and what is wrong. They always weigh the strength, the weaknesses. Even when they are taking the decision, they should be able to analyze that, okay, what is right, what is wrong. They you know, there is what we call some people make decisions based on, it's called the 70-30s. They look at the 70-30 on if the strengths are 70% and the weaknesses are 30%, they obviously go for the 70%. And if the weakness are going for 70% and the strengths are for 30%, then they always go for the 70%. So these are the critical thinkers. They are always on the lookout. They are reasonable. They justify their reasons in making their decisions. They are not biased. They are neutral. They make judgments prior to decision making. They're always on the lookout to analyze the issue before making a decision. And then we have what you call the dysfunctional thinkers or the dysfunctional thinking learners. The dysfunctional thinking learners, these are people or these are learners that are always misusing words. They freak. If they are writing a text, for instance, and they didn't study, they freak, they get confused completely, and they are not even able to, they get so overwhelmed that they are not even able to control their feelings, or they are not able to control their emotions. They get confused. They ask vague and uncorrected questions. This is an opposite of the thinking or the functional thinkers. Remember when I said the functional thinkers, they always make reasonable and they always make judgments prior to decision makers, while the dysfunctional thinkers, they ask vague questions. They don't think before they act. They only poop what comes to their mind, and they ask very uncorrected questions. They don't reason. They don't put their mind or their thoughts in a very logical way or in a very logical manner before they say anything. And they have no reasonable ideas, and they are very biased. They are biased in a way that they don't make decisions based on judgments. They don't weigh what is good, what is bad, which one has more strength and which one has more weaknesses. And then we call what we have creative thinking. What is creative thinking? Creative thinking is the innovativity, form something new. The creative thinking learners, they are always eager to innovate. To innovate is to form something new, to have a new idea, to have something new, a change. They're always looking forward to creativity, innovativity, and they're always willing to change. And then we also have what we call ethics. What is ethics? Many times we speak about ethics as the universally accepted ideas or the morality, the values, differentiating between right and wrong. I know ethics has to do with what is universally accepted. What is universally accepted in the global? It has to do with differentiating between what is right and what is wrong. And in many cases, when you have ethics, when you are able to differentiate between what is right and what is wrong, it's when whether you are under what circumstances, you stand for what is right. Even if there is nobody who is able to look at you, or there's nobody who is judging you, there's nobody who is maybe looking to you. Like if you are a teacher or if you are a learner and you have ethics, you should be able to, let me say for learners, if this learner is ethical, if this learner has maybe some ethical principles or some ethic in him or herself, even if there is no teacher in class, because of standing for what is right, or because they know they know how to differentiate between what is right and what is wrong, this learner is not able to cheat exams, or is not able to cheat from other learners, or they're not able to make noise while there is no teacher in class. So they stand for what is right irregardless of the circumstances, but they are differentiating with they're able to differentiate what is right and what is wrong. They stood for morality, they stood for strong values, and they are also able to follow what is universally accepted as right, or they are able to stand for the truth. Universal intellectual thinking, we also have what we call universal intellectual thinking. The universal intellectual thinking standard, these are principles that individuals apply when thinking, self-reflection, pro and cons, clarity, accuracy, precision, relevance, depth, breadth, logic, and fairness. And you also have what you call the informal, formal, and formative assessment. What is assessment and why do we have assessment? Now ask your question. What is assessment in the education system, or in the classroom, or as a teacher? What is assessment? Why do we assess learners? What is informal assessment? What is formal assessment? And what is formative assessment? The informal assessment, these are maybe informal assessment. These are the type of the question, the type of assessment that you do informally. Maybe we have kind of like a homework, or maybe brainstorming after the end of the lesson. You kind of do some informal questions. They don't really count for CAs or marks for exam marks, but it's more like just an informal discussion with students, asking them certain questions, but in a way you are kind of assessing if they kind of picked up something in class or not. And then we have the formal. The formal, these are like tests and exams. And the formative is also, it's more or less the same like the formal ones. The formative, these are the type of assessment that you also give in class. Maybe a test, maybe a quiz, maybe an assignment, and these few things. It's also part of formative assessment. So you also need to highlight yourself on the issues of qualitative research and quantitative research. What is qualitative research? What is research anyway before we come to quantitative research? What is research? So please, what is qualitative research and what is quantitative research? The qualitative research, this is the type of research that is carried out for in-depth information. For instance, when you want to study people's behavior, learners' behavior, you really want to get an in-depth information on the issue. You want to know, maybe you would want to know why do the perception of learners toward mathematics, or the perception of grade 4 learners toward a certain topic or a certain subject. Now, for you to do this, you use qualitative research because you kind of want to really get detailed and understanding, in-depth information, the deep knowledge and understanding for a certain issue or in this kind of a situation. Now, and in many cases, qualitative research is applied for small populations understudy. It doesn't mean that it's not applied. It's kind of applied in small population understudies because the target is for in-depth knowledge and deep knowledge and understanding. It's quite very difficult for you to use qualitative in surveys, for instance. So while quantitative, this is the type of study that is applied in surveys and large populations. Let me say you kind of want to do a study on perception of a certain subject in a specific region, because it's quite in quantitative studies. It's applied when a researcher is not able to speak to almost everybody, because in many cases qualitative research, people use interviews. The interviews, maybe you use interviews, but in many quantitative, you kind of just use questionnaires in a way that you can even forward an email, or you can forward, you can maybe do a telephonic interviews. But in qualitative, you are very close to the people because you want to know, you want to understand, you want to have a deep understanding on the knowledge and on the in-depth information of the issue. And then we have what you call the learning style. What are learning style? These are a unique way of receiving, processing, and sharing information. When we learn differently in our own way. This is a unique way of receiving and processing and sharing information. What does this mean? Some learners are very good at visualizing. Some learners are good at learning by sight. When they see a student or a teacher in front of them, they are able to follow very well. But some learners, they kind of want to know by what is called auditory. Auditory is hearing of speech. Some learners, when you show them they visualize, and when they are going to be sitting in exams, they are able to kind of memorize by visualizing what they saw. But some are very good at hearing of speech. Some just want to see a teacher in front of them talking to them. So they will kind of like reflect on hearing that speech. And some of them, they are very good at what is called a kinesthetic by action. What does this mean? They kind of, if you are teaching me how to draw, for instance, they want to do it by action. They want to act. If you are telling them about a healthy education, they want to act, they want to start washing their hands, they want to start washing their body. If you are talking about maybe deforestation, they want to start already planting trees. They want to learn by acting. They want to kind of do some kind of vocational training issues already. While some, they like visualizing. They only like to see what the teacher is doing. And some like auditoring, they like to hear the speech of what is being taught. So we have three unique way of receiving: the visualizing, the auditory, and the kinesthetic. The visualizing is learning by sight, learning by what you see. And then the auditory is hearing of speech, learning by hearing. And then the kinesthetic is learning by action. What does that mean? It means you learn by doing. You learn by practicing what is being taught. So what are other detailed information in this module? Unfortunately, I am not going to go into details, but I'm just giving you a hint on some issues. Identifying critical thinkers. What do you look at? Now, remember when we speak about critical thinker, the functional and the non-functional. Now, how do you identify functional thinkers thinking learning in class? And how do you identify the dysfunctional thinking learners in class? What are you looking at for you to be able to say this is a dysfunctional learner and this is a functional learner? What are the aspects that you are looking at? Remember when I said the functional learners, they think before they act, they are reasoning, they are not biased. Now, how do you identify or how do you differentiate between the functional thinkers and the dysfunctional thinkers? Designing emotional intelligence program. Remember when I said we have mentioned about thinking skills and emotional intelligence. Now, for you to design an emotional intelligence programs, how do you design it? What do you look at? What are the aspects that you should be looking at? And also, other very important information in the module is provision of feedback to the learners after the completion of an assessment. Remember when I spoke about assessment, the former, the informal, and the formative assessment. Why is it very important for you to provide feedback to the learners after the Why is it very important to provide feedback to the learners after the completion of the assessment? Why do you need to provide feedback? Why do you need to let learners know that you only got 5 points out of 70 in this topic? Why is the use of providing learners with feedback after the completion of the assessment? And then we have what you call the problem-centered. The problem-centered design teaching and learning using this model. Now, in this model, we have spoken about what is called the problem-centered design model versus the teaching and learning, the problem-centered design model. Now, the problem-centered design model, how do you teach, or how does learners learn into this problem-centered design model? What is problem-centered design model? And what are the main steps used in designing a thinking skills program, emotional intelligence program? What are the aspects that you are looking at when you are designing this intelligence program? Briefly, other detailed information I have mentioned is how do you identify critical thinkers in class? How do you design emotional intelligence programs? Why do you provide feedback to the learners? What is problem-centered design? And how does teaching and learning occurs in using this model? Other very important, more detailed information continues are the concept of whole school approach to critical thinking and thinkers, the Gardner's multiple intelligence theories, assessment in the learning environment, the importance of parental involvement in children education. This is one very important aspect in education. In many cases, you hear parents do not get involved into their children's education. They even say charity start at home. They even say they even speak about the 3 design of parental, the teacher, the learners, and the community. Why is it very important that parents get involved in children education? How is the school environment, how does the school environment may support learners? And what is curriculum? What are the aims of curriculum? And please look at the productive citizen and instilling positive characteristic in learners. How do we instill positive characteristic in learners? We speak about an active, a productive citizen. What is a productive citizen? We look at somebody who is able to vote, somebody who is able to participate in the community development issue or in developmental aspects of their community, of their school, of their church, of their family, and everywhere. You are being a productive citizen. You are a productive citizen because you are able to participate, you are able to make a change, you are able to help out. It doesn't matter whether you are a teacher, which you are a learner, which you are a parent, but you are a productive citizen because you are able to participate in certain developmental aspect of the community. Now, how do we instill, how do we make sure that our learners are empowered? How do we make sure that our learners are instilled with positive characteristic of becoming a productive citizen? And then we also need to look at subject-centered design model relating it to curriculum orientation and foundations. Now, in many cases, in the whole module, I was speaking about emotional intelligence, thinking skills, emotional intelligence and thinking skills. Now, what is emotional intelligence? What is thinking skills? We've mentioned that thinking skills is the cognitive processes or the building blocks for an individual to be able to create, to solve problems, to make meanings, to design, to make judgment, to differentiate. Now, what is emotional intelligence? In many cases, you hear that, no, I think their EQ are not so what. Their emotional intelligence, it's very low. What is emotional intelligence? Emotional intelligence is the ability to monitor one's own and other people's emotion. You are able to control, you are able to monitor your emotions. You are able to, even if you do not have a very good day today as a teacher, you had a very bad day from home, from the office, from the colleagues, you shouldn't come and pour that frustration in the poor kids. You should be able to control your emotions. You're also able to monitor other people's behavior. You know, when you are in class, we are dealing with different children in classes. We are dealing with people having different problems. People have different emotions. We live in a very kind of dysfunctional society. Some people have issues. There is poverty, there is HIV, there is hunger, there is diseases. There's a lot of cross-cutting issues that are affecting our society. So when you have emotional intelligence, you should be able to monitor one's own and other people's emotion. It's the ability to differentiate emotions and label them appropriately, making decisions without the influence of emotions or with no emotions even attached. In many cases, when you do not have a very good day at the office or at work or from home, even the children in class, grade 4 learners, they will be able to pick that I think Miss is not in a very good mood today, so we are not even able to do A, B, and C. So when you have when you control your emotional intelligence, you should be able to monitor others. But first, it starts with yourself. Monitor yourself. You should be able to make decisions without the influence of your emotion. Whether you are so happy, whether you are so angry, please do not make emotions. So if you are in control of your emotional intelligence, is when you are able to make decisions without the influence of the emotions. Don't make emotions when you are overwhelmed, when you are tired, when you are angry, when you are hungry, when you get paid and you think today, yes, this is a payday, I'm going to give a test and I'll just mark every student and I'll give them mark. So not able to control emotions. Now, Goldman component of the emotional intelligence framework. There is a philosopher of education called Goldman has identified some component of the emotional intelligence framework, which are self-awareness, ability to know yourself, ability to know your emotions, ability to know your strengths, ability to know your weaknesses, ability to know your weakness, and ability to know your drives. You know, when you speak about self-awareness, you know, what is awareness? Creating awareness. You know, they have a tendency of saying we are going to create awareness in the community. You know, you alert, you know the people know. But when you have self-awareness, this is the ability to know yourself. You know when you are angry, you know when you are not in a good mood, when you are happy, you should be able to know, you are aware of yourself. What makes me angry most? What is my lowest point? What is my highest point? You know your emotions, you know your strength, you know your weaknesses. Some people have an issue of not able to know their emotions. What does that mean? This actually means that they are not aware of their weaknesses, and they are always not even able to speak frankly about their weaknesses. There's nothing wrong about having weaknesses. So Goldman component of emotional intelligence framework believe that self-awareness, you should be aware about yourself. Then we have what you call self-regulation. Control. What is regulation? It's a procedure, It's a procedure, you know, controlling yourself, controlling impulses, managing your emotions. When you are aware, when you have self-awareness, that's when you are able to self-regulate yourself, because you are able to control yourself, because you know what is wrong with you. If you are not aware about yourself, how will you control yourself? Because you cannot control something that you do not know. And then we have what you call motivation. The motivation is one of the components of emotional intelligence framework. It's about able to motivate your inner self. When you are at your weakest point, even now when you are doing your assignment and you feel you are not making it, motivation, you should be able to motivate your inner self. You should be able to listen to your instincts. If your instincts are saying, please do it, do it, do it, you know, you motivate yourself, you pick yourself up. You know, sometimes they say that when your emotional intelligence is very good, you are even able to, even if when you fail, it doesn't affect you. Even if you did not make it last year in this module, it shall not affect you, because you are able to motivate yourself, because you feel, yes, I'm going to do it. So able to motivate yourself. You can only motivate others if you are also able to motivate yourself, your inner self, setting goals, picking up yourself after failing. What are your goals? Do you have certain goals right now of how many units you are going to read in the next 3 weeks? Empathy. What is empathy? Identifying emotions in others. How do you identify emotions in others? Once you have self-awareness, self-regulation, motivation, then you're also able to empathize. Empathize, you should be able to consider other people's feelings, putting yourself in other shoes. You know, you are able to identify emotions in others. Even when a certain learner is not feeling so well, maybe they are hungry, maybe they are sleeping, maybe they are not able to do it very well, you should be able to empathize. You should be able to consider other people's feelings. How do they feel? Social skills. Social skills, handling of a relationship, moving people in a direction that you desire, finding common ground with people finding common ground with people of different cultures or ideas. When you are emotional, when you have very good emotional intelligence, you also need to have social skills. What does it mean, social skills? Is the ability to handle relationships, the ability to work in a teamwork, the ability to move people in a direction that you wish them to be. If you are a teacher, you should be able to have the ability to move your classroom to a certain level. Your family, your relationship with colleagues, your relationship at work, your relationship in the community, your relationship in the family, your relationship in the classroom, your relationship among friends, you know, it's the social skills. So there are 5 major emotional intelligence framework: the self-awareness, the self-regulation, the motivation, the empathy, the social skills. The social skills is very important because it's about not just about yourself, but it's also about other people, the handling of relationship. The empathy, it's about identifying emotions in others, deep considering other people's feelings. Motivation, able to motivate your inner self. Self-regulation, able to control yourself, able to manage your emotions, able to see that today I'm not in a very good mood, so let me not just speak, act before you act. And that's the self-awareness. You put yourself, you open up yourself as a book, and you learn yourself. What is my strength? What is my weaknesses? When am I low? When am I down? And these are the most important aspects that you also need to look at when you are kind of also teaching, when you're also kind of doing your assignment. This is very important. So apart from the Goldman of emotional intelligence framework, we also what we call the lesson plan. What is a lesson plan? A lesson plan is a guiding principle, it's a plan, it's a guiding document, or it's kind of a process or a procedure that helps you in presenting your lesson. When I came home from this morning, I kind of had a presentation outline. Like, this is what I'm going to speak about. I know the module has so many things. I know, and you need to you need to read all the things prior to exams. But I had what I also kind of call a lesson plan. In presenting a lesson plan, for instance, for grade 2 and 3 learners on a certain topic, there are certain things that you need to take into account when you are doing a lesson plan. A proper lesson plan consists of an introduction. An introduction. What are you going to teach? Remember, in my presentation, I said, in this presentation, I'm going to speak about A, B, C, and D. And I've outlined the exit learning outcomes of the module. A presentation, there's an introduction. What are you going to present? What topic are you going to cover? How are you going to present? A summary where facts are being reinforced. There's an introduction. Okay, good morning class. Today I'm going to speak A and B and C. And then you have a presentation, you present, and you also look at what are you going to, how are you going to make your presentation? Are you going to brainstorm? Are you going to maybe, what are the teaching methodologies and the teaching techniques that you are going to apply in your lesson plan? How are you going to present the lesson? Are you going to have maybe some role plays? Are you going to use brainstorming? Are you going to maybe do some dramas? Are you going to lecture? Are you going to teach? These are some of the teaching methodologies that are outlined, that should also be outlined in your lesson plan. And then you have a summary where facts are reinforced. Remember when I was doing my presentation right now, I kind of reinforce, I make a summary of every presentation. I kind of summarize basic issues like the way I'm doing now. At the end of your lesson plan, there must be a summary. You reinforce issues, kind of summarize and kind of briefly come to the conclusion, the summary and the conclusion. A lesson plan should also have objectives and the suitable teaching materials as well as activities. What are your lesson objectives and the suitable teaching materials? Are you going to use a chalkboard? Are you going to use maybe a chalkboard? Are you going to maybe use, are you going to use papers? Are you going to use maybe some medicines? You need to also outline or identify your teaching materials. What are you going to use in your teaching? Know the lesson plan objective and identify the suitable teaching materials as well as activities. So basically, in the lesson plan, there are 3 important aspects, which are, number 1, the introduction, the lesson objective, the teaching materials, the presentation, and the summary and the conclusion. Now, I think I've come to the end of the presentation with regards to issues that are covered in the topic. Now, further information. Please, it's very important that you pay attention to all the units in the study guide. In my presentation, I had covered few aspects that I've picked up in the module, but it doesn't mean that other aspects are not going to be part of the exam. This exam is based from the whole module, or it's all units will be covered for this examination. So please read all the units in preparation to the exam. Read all the units in preparation for the exams. Do not only cover what I've mentioned in my presentation, but it's very important that pay attention to all the units in the study guide. Do not study to memorize. In many cases, students only study because they want to memorize. In many cases, students only want to memorize. You know, remember when we were speaking about the 3 learning techniques, those who visualize, those who learn by sight, who learn by hearing, and who learn by acting. It's also very important that please, when you study, don't just target memorizing, but always try to understand. When you understand, you should be able to articulate, you should be able to demonstrate even your understanding to the reader. Pay attention to the allocation of mark. If the question is saying, mention 5 and there are 10 marks, mention 10 and there are 10 marks, that means each question carries 1 mark. Pay attention to the allocation of your marks. So please pay attention to the allocation. Pay attention to the question, how much mark does it require? Be brief and straight to the point. Do not run from Katutura and then you go back to Korea Hub and then you go to Yunam and then you go back to Okahanja. Be brief and straight to the point. Provide practical examples to show and demonstrate the earn marks. When I was doing my presentation here, I was giving some practical examples. So also provide few examples and demonstrate your understanding to attract more marks. This examination is going to be a 2-hour exam with 30 minutes paper. It's going to be a 2-hour exam and 30 minutes paper. So please arrive on time to avoid confusion and handle your time properly. Use mark allocation for each question as guide for how many facts needed. Pay attention to the questions. If the question is saying mention, discuss, explain, identify, summarize. If it says mention 5 Goldman component, it's mentioned. You don't need to explain because the question does say mention or identify. But if they say discuss and explain, which means you need to discuss and explain more. Answer all questions for the exam marks. Please read your instruction. If the question says answer all the marks, answer all the marks. Provide practical examples to earn more marks. I have already mentioned that. Write neatly and legible. Please write clearly for me to write to mark also clearly. Number your questions very clearly. There's nothing wrong if you start with question 4, but as long as the questions are numbered clearly. Please, I'm available after hours from 18 to 20 hours. So please do not call me during the day. I have a full-time job, and so unless by appointment. I'm flexible. I'm not shutting you off. I'm very flexible. However, please, let's make appointment. You can even call me and say, Miss, can we please make an appointment? I want to ask you this at maybe 6 in the afternoon or 6 in the morning. I'm quite very flexible. So however, just let's also respect one another. However, I'll make my time available to you from 18 to 20 hours. Or you can drop me an email. I've mentioned my email at the beginning already. Contact number is 081-233-033. Please don't call me at OCAD hours. OCAD hours, I mean 12 o'clock in the midnight, 10 o'clock in the midnight, unless we had an appointment. Or please don't text or SMS because I'm not going to respond back. I have more than 200 students. And take it easy. This is going to be a good year for you. And please start already preparing for exam as earlier as possible. Don't wait up until the last minute. Have a goal. Remember when we said An emotionally intelligent person, they also have goals. They have set their goals in a way that, okay, we are going to start from, I'm going to start my modules, unit 1 to 2, February to March. Don't wait up until the last minute. It's never too late, it's never too early. So let me take this opportunity to wish you well, study well, and all the best in your academic endeavor. So give special attention to the content of this contact class and start preparation for exams earlier. Get acquainted with the work, and I wish you all the best. Enjoy your studies and make it most. Yes, all the best. Thank you very much.